there is a white powder that costs exactly $4. You can find it in the laundry aisle of any grocery store. It permanently armors the wooden frame of your entire house. It completely destroys massive termite colonies at the microscopic level. No pumping dangerous neurotoxins into your family soil. No wrapping your home in an expensive toxic fumigation tent. No paying thousands for recurring exterminator service contracts. Just a cheap white powder, a garden sprayer, and bare wood. Pest control companies charge $2,000 to gas your home. They tell you recurring chemical treatments are completely unavoidable. They are lying strictly to protect a highly lucrative financial loop. This $4 powder completely alters the chemical structure of the wood. It turns your fragile framing into an impenetrable crystalline fortress. It permanently stops wood rot, toxic black mold, and hungry termites. It costs less than a cheap box of cereal. Why did the local exterminator aggressively hide this powder? Because the residential pest control market generates $20 billion annually. They built massive corporate empires on highly temporary chemical barriers. When they wrap your house in a massive fumigation tent, they pump heavy toxic sulfuryl fluoride gas into the walls. The gas violently kills the active termites currently inside the wood. But the massive financial scam happens when they pull the tent off. The toxic gas completely dissipates into the open atmosphere. It leaves absolutely zero chemical protection behind in the wood. 3 years later, a brand new termite colony discovers your house. They swarm the completely unprotected wood and start eating again. You call the exact same exterminator for another $2,000 treatment. This is not a failure of their toxic gas equipment. This is a mathematically perfect and highly ruthless business model. They absolutely depend on the heavy insects returning to your property. A $4 powder that permanently poisons the wood ruins their empire. You absolutely cannot sell a monthly subscription for a permanent fortress. Let me take you back to the massive timber industries of 1950. New Zealand and Australia faced a catastrophic wooden housing crisis. Aggressive subterranean termites were violently devouring entire coastal cities. Chemical engineers desperately needed a permanent structural wood preservative. They turned to a naturally occurring mineral called sodium tetraborate. The world commonly knows this exact mineral as borax. When heavy timber mills saturated their lumber with pure borate, the structural results completely stunned the global logging industry. The treated wood lasted for 50 straight years without a single bite. New Zealand immediately mandated borate treatment for all residential framing. Their termite housing crisis was completely and permanently eradicated. The heavy mineral compound that saved their cities costs pennies per pound. But the modern American pest control cartel aggressively buried this history. They fiercely lobbied to keep American timber largely untreated. They chose to sell you incredibly expensive and temporary poison sprays. They chose a massive recurring invoice over the survival of your home. Before we expose the exact extermination chemistry, listen closely. This termite fortress secret is just a single defensive weapon. The massive utility and service cartels are actively hiding permanent fixes. This channel is strictly dedicated to exposing every single corporate lie. We are currently uncovering the $5 solar panel efficiency restoration trick. We are releasing the absolute off-grid water purification blueprint soon. Hit the subscribe button right now to secure your absolute independence. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an exposed secret. Do not let them keep you completely dependent and financially terrified. But absolutely, do not close this video right now. We are about to dismantle the $20 billion pest control cartel. What actually happens when a termite eats your wooden house? Exterminators tell you the insects simply digest the heavy wood. They claim you must aggressively spray the soil with heavy neurotoxins. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of advanced biological chemistry. Termites actually cannot digest heavy cellulose on their own. Their microscopic stomachs are entirely filled with unique protozoa. These microscopic protozoa actually break down the heavy wood fibers. Without these specific protozoa, the termite violently starves to death. When exterminators spray heavy liquid neurotoxins around your foundation, they are only targeting the nervous system of the active bugs. But those heavy liquid toxins physically degrade in the wet soil. Within exactly 5 years, the chemical barrier completely breaks down. The massive underground colony simply waits out the chemical clock. They march straight back into your completely unprotected wooden walls. The local exterminator knows exactly how fast his chemicals degrade. He actively schedules your expensive renewal inspection based on that timeline. He treats a permanent biological vulnerability exactly like a temporary inconvenience. So how does a $4 powder permanently weaponize your wood? Sodium tetraborate is a highly stable and absolute inorganic poison. When you spray this dissolved powder directly onto bare wood framing, the heavy boron molecules physically lock into the wood fibers forever. When a new termite takes a single bite of the treated wood, the microscopic borate crystals violently enter the termite's stomach. The boron physically targets and instantly kills the microscopic protozoa. The termite can no longer digest the heavy cellulose fibers. The entire invading insect colony violently starves to death in days. The boron also drastically alters the pH level of the wood. Toxic black mold and heavy wood rot simply cannot grow there. The structural decay of your heavy timber stops absolutely instantly. This is not a temporary chemical barrier degrading in the dirty soil. This is a permanent molecular alteration of your physical house. The borate will never break down, evaporate, or lose its extreme potency. As long as the wood remains dry from rain, the protection is immortal. Why is this powder not aggressively advertised by exterminators? Let us look precisely at the brutal economic reality of pest control. A massive pest control franchise relies entirely on recurring monthly contracts. They charge $50 every single month to spray temporary outside barriers. A professional home fumigation tent costs $2,000 and lasts 0 days. This raw borate treatment costs $4 and protects the wood forever. A professional branded borate spray costs $150 per gallon container. This homemade chemical equivalent costs $4 and protects the wood forever. You absolutely cannot build a massive global franchise on laundry powder. You cannot charge massive labor rates for a permanent structural solution. If every homeowner in America heavily borated their exposed attic frames, the massive termite extermination industry would violently collapse overnight. They survive strictly because you inherently panic when you see bugs. They survive because you trust the guy wearing the branded chemical backpack. You are exactly funding their massive fleets of branded pickup trucks. How do you build this immortal wooden fortress today? Here is the strict and unforgiving protocol to armor your home. Go immediately to the laundry aisle of any massive grocery store. Look for the heavy green box labeled strictly as 20 Mule Team Borax. A massive 4-pound box of this raw powder costs roughly $6. That equals roughly $4 for the exact dose your sprayer needs. Go directly to the automotive section and buy RV antifreeze. You specifically need the pink fluid labeled as pure propylene glycol. Propylene glycol acts as a highly aggressive chemical penetrating agent. It forces the heavy borate crystals deep into the center of the wood. Heat exactly 1 gallon of the pink propylene glycol to 150 degrees. Mix exactly 1 pound of the pure borax powder into the hot liquid. Stir the heavy mixture aggressively until the liquid becomes entirely clear. Pour the hot mixture directly into a basic plastic garden pump sprayer. Crawl into your exposed attic, basement, or heavy crawl space. Violently spray the hot liquid directly onto all exposed bare wood. Ensure the wood is completely saturated and dripping with the liquid. The heavy glycol will aggressively pull the boron deep into the studs. Leave the wood completely alone to dry for exactly 48 hours. You have successfully armored your physical home against all biological attacks. You just saved yourself $2,000 using a basic household laundry booster. This structural treatment is much more than a simple exterminator trick. This is a glaring rejection of an engineered system of residential vulnerability. Every time a massive industry discovers a permanent biological cure, they deliberately bury it deep in the absolute dark. They replace it with incredibly expensive and highly temporary toxic sprays. They train their technicians to aggressively mock natural, inorganic minerals. They rely entirely on your inherent fear of your house falling down. They want you completely and utterly dependent on their toxic supply chains. Early global builders knew exactly how to preserve heavy timber forever. The American pest industry actively ignored that resilient chemistry on purpose. They engineered a massive financial dependency that did not need to exist. That vicious cycle of corporate extraction ends right here today. You now possess the exact chemical blueprint to armor your physical property. Share this critical knowledge with every single homeowner you know. Send this to anyone facing a massive pest control fumigation bill. Do not let them pump toxic gas into your family home ever again. Take back absolute control of your own residential maintenance. But this is only the 7th step in our massive investigation. There is another heavily guarded off grid secret you need to see. A $5 clear liquid that permanently restores the heavy efficiency of degraded solar panels. The massive renewable energy cartel prayed you never discovered this coating. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover it. Starve the massive corporate system that violently bleeds you dry. The next vault is officially open.